The wedding march swells beneath a ceiling of stained glass. Rows of faces tilt toward the doors as they open to a girl who looks younger than the weight she carries. 18. A dress borrowed from a cousin. A white orchid hairpin tucked above her ear because her mother said it made her look like spring. Ava Hart steps into the aisle and feels her knees wobble. She tells herself to count steps. 1, 2, 3. She reaches the fourth pew, hears a whisper shiver through the room, and sees what no bride should ever see. There he is, Derek Vaughn, not at the altar, not waiting. He is side door casual, hand in hand with Tessa Reed, the best friend who slept in Ava's room during middle school sleepovers and stole her mascara and laughed into her shoulder. Tessa's dress is liquid gold, tight across a belly that is small but public. The first laugh sounds like a cough. Then the second comes freer and the third has teeth. Phones climb into the air like a black forest. Every light finds Ava's face. Wait, she says, but there is no one to say it to. The priest clears his throat and fails to find words. Someone says, of course he chose money, and someone else mutters, this is going to trend in 10 minutes. Ava's fingers bite into her bouquet. The ribbon snaps. She drops to a knee without meaning to. Tears blur her vision. Her breath goes thin, then thinner, as the choir stalls mid-note and the world learns how to be cruel all at once. A chair scrapes at the back of the cathedral. The sound is small and absolute. Heads turn. A man in a charcoal suit stands, tall, broad-shouldered, face quiet as stone. Marcus Hale, the one newspapers call a predator or a visionary depending on their advertisers, steps into the aisle. He is not a relative. He is not a guest of her family. He is a storm that has chosen a direction. 2 security men rise with him, but he does not look back. He reaches Ava without touching her and removes his jacket like a man surrendering armor. He drapes it over her shoulders to cover the lace and the thinness and the tremble. Up, he says, not sharp, just firm enough that her body hears it. She takes his offered hand. The cathedral inhales. He turns to the swarm of phones and the bright, glassy greed of lenses. No more photographs of Miss Hart, he says. You publish, I litigate, choose wisely. The aisle parts. Murmurs drop to the floor and lie still. Ava walks in his wake, the coat heavy and clean, the orchid pin cold in her hair. When they emerge into January light, the air bites. A dozen cameras attempt one last volley. Hale's car slides to the curb. A driver pops the door. Ava sits because he guides her to sit. The door thunks shut like a verdict. Inside, the cabin smells like cedar and something dark and steady. She realizes her bouquet is gone. She realizes her ring is not real, only silvered brass from a mall kiosk. She realizes she is shaking. Hale speaks to the driver. The city begins to move. They pass a corner deli where boys press faces to the glass to watch. They pass a pair of older women who point and make sorrowful mouths. Ava stares at her knees and the jacket across them, the hand-stitched lining, the monogram. The car slows under iron gates that tilt open on command. A long drive, a lake like black glass, a house that does not apologize for its size. She swallows hard. At the door, a woman with silver hair and an apron waits as if this moment were planned. I am Miriam, she says. You are safe. Ava cannot make her mouth function. Marcus Hale nods to Miriam, then to Ava. Upstairs, second door on the left, there is tea. There are clothes. No one here will point a phone at you. Ava reaches the landing and finds a room with soft lamps and a tray with steam curling up. On the dresser sits a little porcelain dish. She removes the white orchid and sets it there. The petals are bent. She smooths them. They do not spring back. Downstairs, Hale speaks in a low voice to someone about lawyers and a media freeze. Upstairs, Ava sits on the edge of the bed in a stranger's coat and a stranger's silence. She thinks of the aisle, of Tessa's golden dress, of laughter that felt like rain made of glass. She tells herself to breathe in counts of 4. She fails and tries again. There is a knock that is almost a courtesy sigh. Miriam enters with a mug. Honey in the bottom, she says. Drink while it is hot. Ava takes it with 2 hands. Miriam does not ask questions. She straightens the folded clothing on the chair, checks the thermostat, and moves to the door. You are not alone, she adds, and leaves the truth hanging. Ava stands. She drifts to the window. Below, the lake does not ripple. In the glass, she sees a girl in a coat too big for her and hair that has lost its pins. She sees a face that belongs to a child and to someone older than a child. Behind her, on the nightstand, someone has placed a small silver clock. Its second hand ticks with nerve and patience. She listens, and the room steadies by a degree. If this story moves you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. Ava sets the mug down and lifts the jacket from her shoulders. She folds it carefully over the chair as if it were breakable. She touches the porcelain dish. The orchid looks wounded and stubborn. "So am I," she whispers. Then she turns toward the hallway because the night is not done and neither is she. Morning gathers carefully over Hale House. Ava wakes to the hush of carpet and the polite tick of that silver clock. The dress from yesterday hangs over a chair like a shed skin. On the tray, toast, berries, and a small folded card in a hand she does not know. "Stay as long as you choose. M." She showers. The hot water combs the glass out of her lungs. She pulls on the soft clothes left for her, dark leggings, an oversized sweater, socks that warm without smothering. When she steps into the hallway, the air smells faintly of orange peel and polish. Marcus Hale waits in a winter garden made of glass. Snow breathes against panes and does not stick. He closes a folder when she enters. He does not stand too fast. He motions to a chair. "Do you want the door open or closed?" he asks. "Open," she says. The word tastes like choice. He nods, leaves it ajar. "Ava Hart," he says, not for identification, but to give her name a place to land in this room. "I am sorry for yesterday, not for me, for what the world tried to make of you." She looks at her hands. "You did not know me. You could have stayed seated." "I have a reputation for unkindness," he says, "but I do not enjoy cruelty, especially when practiced by a crowd." Silence fits around them like a well-tailored coat. He slides a plain folder across the table. In this folder are two things. One, a list of therapists and legal advocates who specialize in public shamming cases. They are prepaid if you choose. Two, something I would not usually propose, but which may shield you while you rebuild. Ava frowns and opens the folder. On top lies a clean, simple agreement. She reads the headline, 90-Day Social Companion Arrangement. Beneath it, boundaries, no physical intimacy, no living together, 6 public events, 1 philanthropic initiative. Stipend released into a trust for education, discreet security, professional coaching. Termination clause, either party can end at any time, no penalty. She looks up, searching his face for the trap. "Why?" "Because the fastest way to starve a scandal," Marcus says, "is to redirect its appetite. If the city insists on looking at you, then they can look at you beside the one person they have grown bored of watching me. I take the heat. You take time. And when people assume I belong to you," her cheeks burn. "They already assume worse," he says, not unkindly. "With this, we control the narrative and you control your future." Ava exhales, long and trembling. "What do you lose if you do this?" "A board vote or two," he says, as if reading weather. "Some investors who prefer docile headlines, possibly a contract. I can afford it. Can you afford not to?" The question lands exactly where it should. Ava looks back at the paper. Her eyes find the line that matters most: no obligations after 90 days. She hears in some internal room the mean laughter of a cathedral. She hears her mother's voice from years ago, threading a white orchid into clean hair. Kindness is not weakness if it has a spine. She takes the pen tucked in the folder and writes her name in her careful high school script, Ava Hart. Miriam brings tea as the signatures dry. "You will go nowhere alone," Miriam says, not as a rule but as a promise. "We start with basics today. Phones off unless you need them. Breathe from your belly, not your throat. Shoulders back without defiance." The day arranges itself into becoming. A coach with soft eyes shows Ava how to face a lens without surrendering her soul. A stylist trims nothing radical, just finds her cheekbones and returns them to her. A quiet woman from Marcus's security team explains how to spot a hostile man in a soft suit. Ava listens, absorbs, practices. In the mirror, she still sees the girl from the aisle, but the light behind her eyes is not helpless anymore. Late afternoon, Marcus appears in the doorway of the small library. He sets a slender box on the table. Inside lies a fountain pen, heavy and honest, the barrel a deep sea blue. The engraving on the clip is simple, begin. He does not make a speech. He only says, "You will decide what this pen writes." The stipend allows school or travel or a program. It does not buy your choices, it protects them. Her throat tightens. She looks up to answer, but the words wobble. He sees it and spares her. "Tomorrow," he says, "we will test the contract in the wild." Night leans in. Ava returns to her room and sets the pen beside the white orchid, still bent in its dish. She holds the pen and imagines warming the petals back into shape with her fingers. They resist. She smiles without joy. "Stubborn," she says. "Me too." From downstairs, Miriam's voice drifts with dinner plates and comfort. From the drive, tires crackle on frost and then still. Ava writes 3 sentences in a blank notebook with the new pen. "I could have broken. I did not. I signed a future and not a leash." The letters look adult on the page. She closes the cover and breathes as if learning how. The city tests them with winter breath and eager lenses. The first event is small, an arts education luncheon in a hotel with carpets that swallow footfalls. Marcus walks 1 step to Ava's left, not owning space, sharing it. He nods to old friends and old enemies with the same weathered civility. Cameras do not stop entirely, but they flinch. At the elevator bank, a man in a tux leans toward Ava as if asking for the time. "How much is 90 days worth?" he whispers, smile clean and rotten. Ava feels heat climb. She remembers Miriam's lesson. Do not feed an animal you do not want to keep. She tilts her head and lets the silence hold. The man breaks first, laughs at nothing, and vanishes like smoke. Inside the ballroom, a woman from a regional paper asks for a quote. Ava's chest tightens. Marcus slides no words into her mouth. He lets her stand or fall. She chooses to stand. "I am here because I believe education gives a child something no gossip can take," she says. "I am also here because crowd laughter does not define anyone's future." It prints that afternoon exactly as she says it. Online, a thread blooms that is less cruel than yesterday. Someone writes, "Look at her posture." Another replies, "Money teaches posture." A third says, "Maybe pain teaches it faster." The next morning, Cost arrives. Marcus's general counsel forwards an email in which a conservative investor withdraws from a port redevelopment deal, citing brand instability. Marcus reads it once and sends a 2-word reply, "Understood, proceed." He closes his laptop as if closing a window on a cold day. When Ava appears in the hallway, cheeks pink from a walk around the lake, he says nothing about the loss. That evening they practice interviews in the library. "If a reporter asks if you and I are romantically involved," he says, "you will say." "I will say we are in a professional partnership. It has boundaries. It expires." "And if they ask if you are a virgin?" He hates the word in his mouth, but tabloids love cruelty more than language. Ava holds the pen cap in her fingers like a worry stone. "I will say I am not a commodity, and I will not answer that question." His mouth curves, not quite a smile, more a salute to courage. Good. 3 weeks create a rhythm. Event, breath, event. Ava discovers that rooms are just rooms once your lungs learn the square footage. She finds her angles, her steadiness. She thanks every server who brings water. She starts annotating news articles with questions instead of fear. The orchid pin sits each day in its dish and looks almost like a dare. One afternoon, Miriam disappears with it and returns at dusk. "The metal was weakened by a rough hand," she says. "I had it strengthened. The petals may never fold like new, but look," she sets it in Ava's palm. A seam glints where a craftsman coaxed a fracture back to form. Ava's breath catches. "Keep it nearby," Miriam says. Let it remember you. That weekend, a real test arrives dressed like Charity, a gala for maternal health packed with lace and teeth. Tessa glides toward them, rings flashing, press ready. Ava, she purrs, you look brave. Her eyes dip to the bodice of Ava's dress as if truth hides there. Ava feels the old quake, the aisle quake. She anchors her weight through both heels just as the coach taught. Tessa, she says evenly, I am grateful you did not wear white. It would have been confusing. A laugh bursts from somewhere honest in the crowd. Tessa flushes. She stage smiles wider. We should catch up, private girl talk. I prefer conversations that start with apologies and end with accountability, Ava says. Calm, low, final. Phones capture the exact timbre of her voice. The clip trends not because it is savage, but because it is measured. Overnight, a columnist who once jeered writes a different line. Perhaps we mistook a child for prey and discovered steel. Marcus reads the sentence at breakfast and does not hide his pride. Well done, he says. Thank you for not shoving words into my mouth, she replies. If you can carry your own, he says, no one can steal them. They look at each other too long. Miriam clears a dish with perfect timing and returns the room to air. February grinds New York into a gray diamond. Marcus's calendar demands he attend a donor's reception at the Vaughn Foundation, Derek's family's arena. The invitation is a velvet-covered dare. Publicists whisper that Ava should skip it. Ava decides not to run. The mansion is all marble and measured smiles. A quartet works through Vivaldi as if hope can be played. Ava wears midnight blue and the repaired orchid above her ear. The room notes it. Marcus offers his arm at the threshold. She takes it like a colleague and not a rescue. Derek appears with his father, who is the kind of man who never says please because no one has ever told him no. Tessa hovers, glass already on her second story. The introductions are clipped and civilized. Mr. Hale, the elder Vaughn says, we admire your resilience. Weathering public storms requires, shall we say, experienced captains. Marcus's eyes stay warm and unreadable. It requires a crew that knows the difference between a leak and an iceberg, he says. An hour of social fencing later, dessert spoons chime. The elder Vaughn invites comments on a new literacy initiative. Ava's pulse steadies. She rises when others do not expect it. If we want children to read, we need spaces where books live and adults listen, she says. Not photo opportunities, rooms where shame is checked at the door. The words are not an attack, but they land like a clean cut. The room shifts. Some bristle, some sit taller. Tessa's laugh cracks on exit. Derek does not meet Ava's eyes. A board member in the back snaps a photo of Marcus and Ava beneath a painting of a ship in weather. By morning, the image anchors a think piece. Power does not have to be loud to be decent. Cost returns more boldly. A shipping consortium pauses a deal with Hale Global pending clarity of associations. It is a 5-figure annoyance that could become 7. Marcus signs the release without visible pain. Alone in his office, he loosens his tie and lets his breath out as if someone untied a knot behind his sternum. Ava knocks, he waves her in. I heard, she says softly. Part of the price, he answers. I never wanted to be a price. He studies her. You are not, you are an answer. They do not touch. They let the sentence take the seat between them. That night rain threads down the winter garden. They sit with mugs and do not make eye contact and still feel seen. I manage everything I can, he says at last. It is a sickness that feels like a virtue until it costs you people. He tells her about a sister and a driver's license and a road no adult supervised. Control was his promised cure. It never was. Ava tells him about the night her father left. Not dramatic, just a car door, a porch light, a phone that never rang again. My mother taught me that love is not supposed to humiliate, she says. I forgot, briefly. He hears the word briefly, and the mercy inside it. She tucks the engraved pen into her sweater sleeve. I am applying for a fellowship, she adds. Writing, they will laugh at my past. I will send the application anyway. Send it, he says. Let them learn your present. When she stands to go, their hands almost brush on the back of the chair. Almost. Both retreat with a small, helpless smile. The contract clock on her nightstand moves without consulting them. Gossip fights back. A site with a vindictive editor publishes screenshots of texts between Ava and a burner number that looks like Marcus's, staged to suggest she baited him before the wedding. The headline is a dare. Orchid Girl plays the long game. It spreads fast. Miriam finds Ava in the pantry with her phone face down like a dead bird. You do not owe the world your panic, Miriam says. But if you need to shake, I will hold the walls. Why are they like this? Ava asks, honest as dawn. Because there is profit in your pain, Miriam answers. We will bankrupt that business. Marcus enters with his legal chief, a woman with a stare like frost. We can bury the site, the lawyer says, but that feeds them. Marcus looks to Ava. Your call. Ava's first impulse is to torch the thing. Her second is to hide. Her third and truest is to build. I want to open a reading room in the Southside Rec Center, she says. Tables, lamps, a small stipend for volunteers. Let the first story be theirs, not mine. Marcus nods slowly as if something locked finally opens. Done, he says. We will wire funds today. You will cut the ribbon. I will stand 6 feet behind you. She laughs, a small, bright sound that does not apologize. When they arrive at the rec center a month later, light fills a space that used to hoard shadows. Paper chains loop from ceiling tiles. A boy in a puffer jacket reads aloud to a girl with beads in her braids. Ava kneels, level with their eyes, and hears her pulse match the rhythm of the boy's voice. A reporter hovers, expecting a sound bite. Ava offers a short truth. Books taught me I could be more than a headline. The clip runs on the evening news. It does not trend, it roots. 2 days later, a thin envelope arrives addressed in a hand Ava does not recognize. The seal bears a lily. Inside, acceptance to a Florence Fellowship, tuition, housing, a mentor who underlines verbs. Her first gasp is joy. Her second is fear. She finds Marcus on the terrace where winter pretends to be spring. I can say no, she says. You can say yes, he replies. You can leave a door ajar. You can leave every door you want ajar. Will you be all right? She hates the question as soon as she asks. It makes him smaller than he is. I will be as I have learned to be, he says, and better for having known you. At the reading room opening's closing ceremony, a kid hands Ava a cardstock bookmark with her name spelled right. She slides it into a book she has not yet written. On her dresser that night, she sets the orchid pin beside her passport. Miriam watches and understands without asking. Contract day 90 approaches like a tide that knows its work. Neither of them mentions it. On the morning of the 90th day, a pale sun sits over the lake. Miriam pins the repaired orchid in Ava's hair for the last event, fingers gentle, eyes too bright. I took it to a better jeweler, she admits. Some breaks deserve a master. You are a master, Ava says and means it. The event hums. Donors, cameras, a podium. Ava speaks about beginnings. Marcus watches, hands folded, not interfering, the old compulsion quieted by discipline. At midnight, the silver clock on her nightstand ticks and does not ring. A contract ends. A life keeps walking. They say goodnight at her door like coworkers and something else. She wants to say stay. He wants to say do not go to Florence. Neither does. The space between them is not absence. It is respect. Florence smells like stone warmed by sun and espresso drifting from corners where old men play cards. Ava lives in a second-floor walk-up with windows that look like paintings when she forgets they are windows. She writes in the mornings until words unclench. She walks in the afternoons and pretends to be a tourist in a life that is hers. Back home, the reading room grows teeth. Homework clubs, a Saturday story hour, a girls' essay circle that names itself the Orchids. Photos arrive in Ava's inbox, lamps glowing, faces bent over pages. She replies to each with a note that uses their names on purpose. Marcus keeps distance like a promise. Once a month, a package arrives, a book with a dog-eared page, a map with a route traced in blue pen, a fountain pen cartridge in midnight ink. No letters, just objects that say, "I see you from here." Ava sends nothing back for months because she is busy building a person who does not owe the world an apology. When grief sneaks into her chest at night, she walks to a bridge and counts boats. On the 40th boat, the ache loosens. She writes an essay called Public Rooms about places where dignity is restored. A small journal publishes it. A larger magazine asks for another. She writes about Miriam's hands and Marcus's jacket without nomming them. A professor underlines her verbs in red and circles one sentence with a checkmark. The opposite of humiliation is not pride. It is privacy chosen and shared on your own terms. 2 years slip by without wasting a day. Ava graduates on a stage no one films. The applause sounds like wood and joy. She buys a cheap ring in a market stall, a blue glass bead set in brass, and wears it on her right hand as a promise to the girl who stood up in a cathedral. A message pings from Miriam, lecture invite waiting when you land. Come home, child. Ava stares at the screen until it blurs, laughs through a sob, and books the red-eye. New York meets her with a sky that looks like steel and forgiveness. The city learned a new trick in her absence. It learned to talk about her without cruelty. Posters for her lecture hang outside a modern hall with clean lines. A microphone hums. She steps onto the stage in a white suit that fits like a sentence that finally learned where to end. Halfway through her talk, she feels a change in the air. It is not electricity. It is attention redistributing. She looks up and sees Marcus standing in the back, hands in pockets, face that same quiet stone smoothed by weather. He does not wave. He does not smile. He is just there, the way a person is when they are not performing. After she signs books, a child from the reading room beams up at her. Her hand barely shakes when she writes her name. Outside, cameras wait not as wolves but as dogs who might be taught a trick. The Vaughns have RSVP'd to the reception because vanity is a habit. They enter with grace manufactured by stylists. Derek offers a tight smile that says nothing honest. Tessa wears red like a dare. Someone whispers, "Do not take the bait." Ava does not. She eats one tomato on a toothpick and compliments the caterer. Marcus walks toward her as if crossing a small river on stones he cannot see until he trusts they are there. "Congratulations," he says. "On what?" "On every single thing." She laughs and it tastes like the first week in Florence. The reception tilts toward spectacle when a gossip host angles a mic at Ava's mouth. "2 years ago, you were a scandal," the host coos. "Tonight you are a star." Any words for young women who might want to take a similar trajectory? Ava lets the question hang until the room hears its ugliness. "There is no trajectory to humiliation," she says. "There is only the work of standing up and walking forward. If you want advice, I recommend rooms with doors you control and friends who will turn off your phone for you." A pocket of applause starts left and spreads. The host lowers the mic, smiling like a person who just learned a line she did not intend to learn. Derek steps nearer, compelled by some old thread between them. "I owe you an apology," he says. "It is almost true. We were stupid. Ava lifts a hand and the apology stops where it should. "You owe a better man than me an apology," she answers, nodding toward Marcus with something like fondness and steel combined. "He paid some of your bill." Tessa opens her mouth. A publicist pulls her sleeve. The moment collapses without giving them a stage. Marcus has not moved. He stands not on guard, not on edge, but with her. When the press line thins, he steps close enough that she can hear him without the room borrowing it. "I have something for you," he says. "Another book, a map, a pen cartridge I cannot find in Italy." "A small glass box," he says. and something that belongs inside. Show me. He does not pull it out here. He gestures toward the garden. Camera lenses wheeze, then hesitate, sensing their access thinning. They cross under strings of lights that pretend to be constellations. In the shadow of a stone fountain, he produces a box the size of a ring case, but flatter. Inside, resting on white velvet, lies the white orchid hairpin, repaired beyond visible seams, cradled inside a clear resin keepsake that will not bend again. For your desk, he says, so you will remember a day that tried to break you and the days that refused to allow it. Ava's breath trips. She touches the resin and feels its steady chill. You kept it safe, she says. I waited until you could. He answers. She closes the box, not because she wants to hide it, but because she knows when to hold a moment still. Thank you, she says, and the words feel too small. He half smiles. There is another box, he adds softer, but it is not for tonight. She understands before she lets herself understand. Days later, after the noise folds itself back into ordinary life, Ava reads at the reading room on a Saturday morning. Kids sprawl on rugs. Marcus sits cross-legged on the floor like a man who once forgot how. They listen to a page about a girl and a city and a door that no longer locks from the outside. When the room empties, they walk to the lake that once held winter like a blade. Geese fold themselves into angles on the shore. Marcus's shoulders look looser, as if control finally released a thread it did not need. I thought the opposite of power was helplessness, Ava says. It might be tenderness. I thought the opposite of grief was forgetting, he says. It might be permission. They stop under a tree that remembers all their seasons. Marcus turns, inhales like a diver deciding to surface, and lowers himself to one knee, not as a performance, but as a man choosing an angle that allows him to look up without pride. He opens the other box. The ring is not loud. A band of gold braided like something hand-drawn, set with a single small sapphire that gleams like a memory that finally blesses instead of wounds. No contracts, he says. No countdowns, only a life. Ava Hart, will you walk with me? The world does not fall away. It leans closer. Ava's yes arrives without spectacle. He rises and slides the ring onto her finger with a hand that does not shake. They do not kiss for cameras. There are none. They kiss for the air and the geese and themselves. News will find it later because news always does. The photo that spreads first is not the ring but the reading room sign with kids' handprints. People write, love that builds rooms is the kind that lasts. For once, the comments tire of hunger and learn a shape like blessing. That night, Ava sets the orchid keepsake beside the engraved pen on her desk. She touches both and then writes a sentence that begins a new book. The day I was humiliated did not end me. It introduced me to the people who would not let the ending be cheap. The ceremony is small because they want it that way. A hall with windows, Miriam in a dove-gray dress, kids from the reading room allowed to place paper flowers in jars. No viral invitations, no hashtags printed on foam boards. The orchid sits in its clear house on a table near the vows. Ava wears a simple silk column and the repaired orchid in her hair, not for tradition, but because it belongs. Marcus wears a dark suit with a tie he did not overthink. When the officiant asks if anyone objects, the room smiles because the only voices that matter have already spoken for years. Ava's vows are not about forever. They are about daily, about handing each other coffee on mornings when grief surprises them, about building third places, libraries, rooms, corners of cities, where others can stand up without spectacle. Marcus's vows are short. He promises to protect without possessing, to stand with and not in front of, to let privacy be the soil where love grows. After they eat lemon cake on porcelain that does not match because matching is not the point, Tessa does not appear. Derek sends a card signed by an assistant that says, "Wishing you peace." They do not respond. Evening turns New York to silver. On their terrace, a small lantern throws a patient light. Ava touches the resin box and the ring and feels how both are true, the break and the mend. She thinks of the aisle and the chair scrape and a coat settling over her shoulders like the first sentence of a safer chapter. "Do you remember the silver clock?" she asks. "In your room," Marcus says, "the one that bullied me into patience." "It taught me to breathe," she says. "4 counts in, 4 counts out. Tonight we can exhale." They do. The city hums. The lake keeps its secrets. In a room that belongs to them, a billionaire and a girl who is not a girl anymore decide to do the unthinkable every day, to love without the theater of power, and to let kindness be their public record.